Gabriel, Angel Floyd. Question. So, what does our economic strategy need to look like as we're in the awakening? And the reason I ask that is because in Jeremiah 29, there's a commission that when they go into Babylon to do some things. And one thing I realized about being in the awakening is that although I'm not compromising myself, who I am as a set-apart person, I'm compromising my time. Because I work in a colonial system that despises the things that Yah has called us to. And so there's a word that he tells them, he said, occupy until I come. That word occupy is a military term. It's like a waiter. A waiter doesn't just wait.
That's right.
The waitress or the waiter is what's serving.
That's right.
How do we begin to serve our community in the awakening, but yet we go to colonial jobs every day that despise the Most High? So I wonder what should be our economic strategy?
I'm trying to right up my alley because I do deal with politics. I am politically involved. I had seriously considered a run for government this past election for the House of Representatives in my community. Not because I think I'm a great politician, because I'm not. I don't know anything about being a politician, but I know about service.
That's right.
And I know that the people that are elected to these offices, a lot of them aren't really sincere about the service. I mean, you think about this thing, we have more black politicians than we've ever had, yet we're still in the same position we were at the end of the 60s. So this tells you that, everybody is not necessarily buying in, they're selling out. So what we have to do as a community is get back to the grassroots things that the Bible teaches. Even the way Israel was set up as a theocracy and not as a monarchy, a government, by the Lord, it was built on a grassroots foundation. So even though we do live in various parts of the world, scattered, and we are tapped into these systems, it benefits us to be involved with what's going on in our community because it has a direct impact on the people that live where we are. So we need to be politically aware of who's in position so that we know what decisions are being made. And as you pointed out in the scripture in Jeremiah 29, where it says, build houses and live in them, plant gardens and eat their produce, take wives and have sons and daughters. Take wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply there and do not increase, but do not decrease rather, but seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile. And pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare. So we should be actively aware and more involved, again, at that grassroots level, because that's where things really happen that affect you. Your local and state elections are more important, really, often than your federal elections.
Correct.
And because your federal elections can get stonewalled, but stuff be passing at the state and local level all the time that affects folks and they don't even know what happened.
Yeah.
That's why you go to the store and find out the taxes went from 5% to 8%. They're not doing that in D.C. They're doing that right down the street.
Right.
And so all of these different things, schools, all these things. So we should know what's going on because the Bible talks about even in the Brit Hadashah in the New Testament how these powers and different things are set in place. But it also talks about so that we can live a peaceful and quiet lives and things. But how you going to establish some type of peace and quiet for yourself is you got to be able sometimes to fight for it or get actively involved to make it so that your environment is peaceably and quiet. All right? And so we just can't continue to trust and let things happen the way they've been happening because we've already seen the results of that. You got high crime in a lot of your areas. You got gentrification out of control. We got over-incarceration. We got a ridiculously high abortion rate. Now more babies have been murdered than people died in the transatlantic slave trade. And so we have all of these things happening in our communities right now, and we can't rely on the government to help us because it's not to their benefit to help us.
Right.
So we have to force them to help us. When Obama was in office, everybody told, we got a black president, he's going to do this and that. But Obama wasn't your homeboy. He was your employee. You didn't send him to Washington, D.C. and say, hook a brother up. No. Everybody else got what they got from him. You know why? Because they organized,
That's right.
they put their money where their mouth was, and they brought him an agenda and said, now do this or else. And that's what we have to make politicians do. If you don't do this, you out of here the next election cycle. Or we're not going to contribute to this. But we don't hold many times our politicians accountable.
That's right.
So what we got out of Obama was 8 years of photo ops. That's why folks be having Michelle and Obama, pictures for their profile on Facebook. They look good, but we didn't get better.
That's right.
That works.
And so we're going to have to, again, recalibrate and strategize and force things to work for us while we're here.
That's right.
Until the Most High come and get us out of here.
That's right.
He said when he prayed that priestly prayer in John 17, I don't pray that you take them out of the world. Uh-oh, everybody want to leave? You want a second Exodus? You want a rapture? But he didn't say that. He said, I don't pray that you take them out of the world. He praying that we learn how to live in the world until he returns.
Yes.
And that we make changes for the people that are in the world.
That's right.
That we fight for the fatherless, the poor, the sick, the needy. All right? Against the greedy. So we still have a mission and an obligation to fulfill here. We can't be aloof, waiting for pie in the sky after we die, or for a sudden exodus for folks that's already going through hell. We got to be busy here.
Amen.
Yeah.
You should have ran off. that was a political speech right there. That should have been a commercial. But no, he talked about the political part of it, which I think is great. And I think we do need more Israel to really function in that area. The Most High ain't gonna be mad at you. But I want to talk about from the starting point of getting to where he's talking about. The Torah teaches us that if a man does not leave an inheritance for his child or his family or whatever, he's an infidel. Mm-hmm. We don't even know how to manage and deal with money.
Come on.
Let alone talking about taking care of a nation.
Come on.
We first have to make sure that we get our home foundation right. If you're not a good steward over money, then how in the world are you going to be prepared to do anything? I think that we have to get that foundation together first. Most High has blessed us in this captivity to be able to have jobs and things like that. Focus on not spending money, but focus on how to be able to save money while still looking good. What I mean is that you don't have to buy a $250 pair of Jordans. You can rock Jordans. They got $50 pair of Jordans if you look in the right spot. Right? I'm just saying. Majority of them, the shoes that I purchase aren't over $60. I can find out where they are. I go to Orlando, go to the outlet, do my shopping, What I'm saying is that you don't have to be defeated or look like a bum. We need to really get our vocabulary and get out our spirit, this terminology and things about being a cursed people. When in fact, the curses do exist, but those curses are only for people that aren't following the first 1 through 14.
Hallelujah.
Go back and read Deuteronomy 28, 1 through 14. A sign of Israel is also being a blessed people.
That's right.
Once we change our mentality and understand 1 through 14, being blessed in the city. How can you be blessed in the city and blessed in the field if you don't have nothing? Right? So obviously there's some financial wealth there and other things, being spiritually blessed. But if you don't know it, if your mentality is focused on being broke, then how in the world is the Most High going to move in your life? I'm not talking about delivering and preaching a prosperity gospel. I'm telling you what's already written in the scriptures for you as an Israelite.
That's right.
So when you understand that, then I no longer just spend money frivolously. I have respect for money, and I understand how the Most High operate and move with money. When you do that, then it's no longer me just going to buy something because I got it. I don't have to buy a steak, $100 steak, just because I got it.
That's right. That's right.
I don't have to do that. I'm thinking about my children. I tell my son, me and my wife tell our son, as long as you working and you can stay in our house, debt, don't have to pay nothing. My parents didn't do that for me.
That's right.
So in order for me to cure and solve the debt problem and the bondage problem that our brother's asking about, I have to first get in my son's mind how to understand, son, you can live here, save your money. Don't be focusing on these girls, don't be focusing on these video games, don't be focusing on all that stuff. If you buy it, put money to the side and save up for it. But while you stand here, when you leave here, you should be walking into a paid-for home.
That's right.
If I teach him that,
That's right.
he'll teach his son that.
That's right.
This is how we solve the problem.
Exactly.
But now we're more focused on our enemy and other things. You don't have an enemy when you have the Most High.
Right.
They're the Most High's enemy.
Amen.
And in Deuteronomy 28, he tells you, when you're a blessed people, he'll even fight your enemies.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right? Which means he's the biggest arm dealer there is. He knows how to distribute weapons. He's a master strategist at war. So we have to change our way of thinking, how we approach, and we have to start in our own home first. Husbands and wives need to be on the same page when it comes down to doing certain things. If you're a single parent, understand, look at the scriptures. Our forefathers, we weren't a nation of broke people. How can you be a lender? Let me say it again. In the same chapter, Deuteronomy 28.
That's right.
How can you be a lender if you have nothing? How? How can someone borrow from you if you don't have anything? And speaking about Exodus, and I'm going to land here. They were in Egypt, being the tail. Just because you're the tail don't mean you broke.
Right.
And here's what I mean. In our forefather days, having cattle and flock was considered a value. So how is the Most High distinguishing the difference between the Egyptian flock and the Israelite flock when the plagues came? Which means they had stuff, they just weren't in a social status of being the head. Meaning that the decisions that were being made was the people that was above them. But amongst Israel, we had enough stuff. Where the lambs came from. Where did they come from? We didn't have anything. Where did it come from? How was the Most High making a distinction between the Israelites and the Egyptians if they don't have anything? They had children. For those who have children, you complaining about what you don't have physically in the practical world. Do you know that the Bible even talks about that those who have children are blessed? It's a blessing to be able to bear children. See, we don't even think about this stuff. And we appreciate the Most High for just being able to have children and looking at your children and valuing your children. That's why people kill their children. They don't understand the value and the importance of how the blessing of being able to have children, being fruitful, right? So I just want to land my plane there on that. I think it starts at the home first. Once the home gets to the home, then we can move to where Dr. I.J. West was talking about being impactful and effective within that system. But we have a system at our home first. And if our system at home is not right, then trying to get government to do whatever, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. But we have to have a foundation at our home first. Amen?
Amen.